me an enemy so you can hate me. Because once you start hating, you can't stop thinking.
Animal cognitive expert and science writer Justin Gregg wrote a book titled If Nietzsche Were a Narwhal. In his book, Gregg argues that there's an evolutionary reason why human intelligence isn't more prevalent in the animal kingdom. Simply put, non-human animals don't need human intelligence to be successful, and their success arrives without the added baggage of destroying themselves and the planet in the process. In a conversation with Adam Grant about his book, Gregg says that we can rationalize ourselves into why this is right and this is wrong. But when those things don't work, we can rationalize and moralize ourselves into a position to justify things like genocide. Most of the terrible genocides committed in our past are based on people who thought they were morally correct or justified in doing what they were doing. If you are very convinced that you are right and you don't allow your ability to change your mind and to think differently about your moral reasoning, then you are probably on a path to potential danger and destruction. The problem with morality is that we don't allow things and evidence to change our own ideas about our own beliefs. It is very difficult to be moral without intelligence. I would even argue that within the idea of intelligence, diversity of thought is an integral part in being able to have an aerial view of morality. Pastor Jeremy Wade Coleman put it this way: we as people are programmed to or addicted to monolithic groupthink. We don't want you to agree with just the main headlines, but also all the subpoints. And we have issues with anyone who doesn't buy into every single little thing. That's dangerous, because then there's no diversity of thought. When there's no diversity of thought, there's really no challenge that happens, no change. Phil Tetlock said, "We should treat our beliefs not as treasures to be guarded, but as hypotheses to be tested." When you put something out there that makes people uncomfortable, you are sure to get harsh criticism back. But American philosopher Agnes Callard talks about the importance of seeing your shortcomings through others. She says, "The test of anything, thoughts and ideas, is to say them out loud to someone. Our minds are both cognitive and emotional roller coasters. It's really hard to actually question something. You have this feeling that something is at stake, and whether or not you're going to hold on to this particular view or claim is a function of how this conversation goes. Rethinking means you're exposed to a new set of objections. It doesn't mean you'll be able to answer them. It's from a Platonic dialogue, the idea that another person is a kind of mirror from the Alcibiades. What Socrates says is that you look in the dark part of their eye, and it's like you can see your own reflection, and so another person serves as that. They're showing you all your faults because you can't see your own faults. When you see yourself reflected in another person, that's when you see your faults." When you take a chance at being vulnerable, you run a risk, but sometimes that risk pays off. Some of you may know the joy of crossing paths with someone you really connect with, and you each naturally bring out all the weirdness and quirkiness from one another. A friendship blossoms, conversation flows naturally, and not even your closest other people around you can hope to decipher the inside jokes that you share. I found that with my friend Zach Kidder. This episode, we sat down in his garage over some home-brewed beers and a cheese platter that we found behind the Publix, while we discuss our journey to seek what truth is in a world so fraught with misinformation, and about the importance of practicing good faith dialogue in a culture divided and ready to demonize each other. So, welcome to Grubbing Grace. I'm your host, Mark Flower. Although I didn't know what to expect going into this conversation, I quickly realized how important this conversation needed to happen and how relevant it is today. This is one of my longer episodes, so I hope that you strap in until the end. If not, I'll see you in the next one. I did, though, have some technical difficulties as my microphone stopped recording after about halfway through. But luckily, Zach was also recording on his phone. I truly hope you enjoy this zany and insightful conversation with Zach Hitter.
We want to worship today. We're here to worship. Welcome to the worship. Everyone come on in. Find a seat. We're here to worship today. Everyone, come on in. We got the guitarist. I've got a drum and 5 backups. We've come to worship. Come on, ladies. We've come to worship you. We've come to worship. That's right. Come on, sit down. We're here to worship. Welcome, everyone. Say hi to your neighbor. Go say hi to the neighbor. Hi. No, give him a hug. Give him the 10 Commandments. That's what I'm talking about.
Friendship circles.
We've come to
worship you.
We've come to
worship
today.
Worship today.
That's right. Oh, I was picking up on yours. That's what it was.
Dogs of the New York Landscapers Association of Ferguson Writers. The writer's strike will commence.
I don't even know. Should I introduce this episode as my normal way of introducing things? This is such
I don't know if are we on or do you want to just kind of
this is such a
jump in at some point and
non-traditional way of doing.
I was going to say if you want to admit anything, I'm just kind of.
I'll go ahead and do it. Maybe I'll include some of the conversation.
Yeah,
maybe. All right. Welcome to Grub and Grace. I am here with my friend Zach Hitter. By the way, I am Mark Flower. I am here with Zach Hitter. I've been looking forward to doing this.
The teleprompter isn't working. Thanks, man. I'm wearing Crocs right now.
They slip on my feet.
We're in my garage. This is the first time I've ever had a podcast in my garage.
So, to my listeners who might be thrown off from my traditional way of doing things, this is my good friend from college. Our conversations are a little non-traditional, so we will just kind of let it flow. And if it's too weird for you, tune into the next episode. Perfectly fine. No feelings hurt.
None. No.
Yeah.
If I catch wind that you've skipped this episode, I hope it's because of, you'll see.
Get it? Because you can't see on a podcast. It's see.
The wind.
You feel that breeze on your face? That.
Well, anyway, you want me to?
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So thanks for having me, man.
So I should give a little disclaimer. I have no idea what we're going to be talking about today.
Well, I wrote down in my notes that I'm so excited.
There it is.
Hey, I am so excited. Pull it together, Zach. But yeah, I thank you for doing this, man. This is awesome just to be able to come on this train of yours that has been going along for some time now as you started getting into the podcast world in the last year or two. And
a whole 3 weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks. It feels like longer than that in dog years. This is an honor. And I really thank you so much. And just even if it's just a chance to talk to you and have like a informal / formal opportunity. But I got excited just the last few weeks. I'm like, there's a lot brewing, not just beer, but in my mind in terms of, just also life, the church. When you first introduced me to the idea of what you were planning on doing about, I want to say beginning of 2023, you had messaged me, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And this is the idea of Grub and Grace. This is what I'm toying around with. And this is what I'm thinking about doing. I'm like, oh, yeah. Of course, I'm like, you're like, you have any ideas, suggestions, or anything related to kind of pulling with like the culinary and mixing that with the experience that people have, right? This vision. And I'm like, how about the Nephilim? Those guys ate. You're like, yeah, Zach, we'll talk to you. You could get your agent in touch with my agent. We'll see what happens. Which, I mean, that's not what I'm planning on.
No, which is funny because you brought that up, and I'll admit, I was kind of like, of course, yeah. But since that first talks about doing it, I have shifted my perspective as far as like where I want to take this podcast, and I think there is room for conversations like that too. So all is welcome. But I know we won't be talking about that today. I know you have other ones. We can jump on another talk like that if it comes up. Cool. Like,
it might surface. And so just a little bit of I'll jump in about. I'll kind of give you a little history, kind of bring people up to speed on who I am and what I'm all about, so they don't think I'm just some weird guy you found in the alleyway behind Publix and the Ross, the Ross clothing store, hanging out by the Ross,
just hanging out in the center little circle clothes racks.
Oh, the sandwiches have arrived. Alert!
The sandwiches have arrived.
This is funny. We're actually breaking bread.
No
way.
Bakery.
Mark is a generous man. We got cheese because I'm a Wisconsin guy at heart. Cheese. And you're a Minnesotan.
I'm a Minnesotan.
Did you ever sneak over across the border into Wisconsin and grab someone's cheese off their living room table?
I did twice.
Writing that down.
There he goes. Zach's walking around. He's getting the sandwiches. We're going to break the bread together.
We've got
Publix breads.
Oh, it's all mayonnaise. The only topping they put in here.
Mayonnaise and bread. Mayonnaise bread sandwiches. Brought to you by Publix. Sponsored by Publix.
Yeah, help yourself. If you're feeling it. Or
I'm going to break some bread right here. Broken.
Cutting to 15 minutes later when Zach finally regains composure of his brain, I put together a slideshow. And I actually put it together pretty much the last couple nights. I'm like, all right, I got to get this like bullet points in my head. I wrote down, I did some like talk to text, and I was like, I'm going to all these ideas. And I'm like, well, I can't talk about all that stuff. And obviously I was joking with the Nephilim. Well, yeah, actually there's a little bit. That's not like the topic, obviously, but I'm like, no. And I just kept feeling pulled into like just telling, a story. But so I put it a slideshow just to kind of have some visual aids, but there's also some sound bites that might show up to really bring in the mood. So, but yeah,
please bring it all in.
But yeah, so the thing that I came up with, I think I was sharing with you a couple weeks ago, was the search for the truther. Truth ER. This is getting complicated with bracketed ER at the end. That's kind of been my weird way of putting this last 10, 12, 15 years of existence. But so yeah, I was like, all right, you know what? This is it. Like, if I were to sum up my story and like what's gone on in my life over these years and how I've been redirected or put into this pattern of, this direction, I should say, it's what's kept me afloat in an age of uncertainty, relativity, propaganda, and gaslighting. So it's a lot of stuff.
The best kind of lighting.
I love it. Yeah, that's actually what all the power you see here in this room is all powered. We're not on the grid. It's all gaslighting. We have some very negative, toxic people out in here in the woods that are just exuding energies.
They just have microphones toxic. And they just Zach,
do it.
Your cheese doesn't taste good.
I didn't know that. It's not true.
If only you could screw in a light bulb.
Exactly. And we get like times 80. There's 80 of those guys doing that. So and then imagine some of the Karens out there.
Oh, the Karens.
But yeah, and then that's my name. I'm Zach Kidder. That's a little book emoji. But yeah, I'll just tell you a little bit about my story and just kind of my upbringing. So here's the fam jam.
The fam jam.
We were raised in the church. I'm the oldest of four siblings, so I have three younger sisters. I'm the oldest. A lot of Barbies, a lot of playing around in the house, chasing them. Yeah, we were, pretty much had a pretty normal, I would say, childhood. Went to church, did the whole church thing, Sunday school. At some point, all right, are you ready to ask Jesus into your heart? Let's go sit around the fire. All right, this is the time. Let's say the prayer. Here you go. And then end of this gesture here with the fist. Yep. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of it. So just kind of normal, our friendship circle, our life. That was our world. That was that. And so things started taking a little bit of a twist and a turn when I was, middle school age. Well, I should say like age 10 through 14. My mom got sick with cancer. Mm-hmm. So we were dealing with that. That came into our life. And that was just the new reality of like, okay, not only, it was just, it was a lot. So it was, her getting treatments and all that stuff. But she ended up passing away when I was 14 into my 8th grade year. And that was pretty hard. So that rocked my world. And it brought into play just a lot of questions. It's like, all right, well, first question being, why did you take my mom? And, along that, before that, and even like definitely after that, my dad and I just did not get along very well. Mm-hmm. And there was that kind of antagonistic relationship and just not a very good one. And so my next question to God was, why was I left with him? Mm-hmm. So those were some big ticket questions right there. And going into high school, cruising into the, that time of life, so many changes, so many things. I'm like, okay, this is not easy. So it was definitely a very tough time in my life. Definitely and my sisters too. I mean, they all experienced it too. And certainly my dad, I'm sure he experienced it too. He's now a single parent, raising us and all that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think the big thing for me, no, those questions were never answered. There was never oh, there you go. Thanks, God. I picture there's this Monty Python, The Holy Grail. Did you ever see that growing up?
Oh, yeah.
Whenever they portray God coming out it's always coming out of the clouds in like this cartoon version.
Oh, it's super cartoony.
Like, hi, what are you doing now? They're like just this goofy, and it was never, I turn everything into it. You know me, Mark. I'm a jokey guy. It's made light of hard times. It's like, there just has to be a breaking point where you just go, what? Like, this is absurd. But yeah, life was definitely pretty hard, especially, growing up as a high school kid, the emotions are even stronger than they are just learning about life, and then just not having that motherly presence. I think that was pretty tough. But yeah, so no questions were answered, those ones at least. But even with all the adverse conditions and just like I want to say gaslighting, just the bad relationship I have with my dad, abusive, and just that nature of things, people came out of the woodwork. All of a sudden there was like father figures, and people are like, hey, I'm going to take you out to Culver's for this, or I'm going to go, walk you through the Bible and disciple you for a year. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. And just people, friends, parents, friends' moms, becoming a mother to me and all that. And like my dad remarried, we had, the story continues, and it didn't get any easier, but yeah, that's basically kind of that chapter and all that. And so a little bit about, I have this slideshow going right here.
Yeah.
And
I
this was I did not create this. This was a template. And I was like really pissed off because I couldn't get rid of that coffee cup right there. And there's like a little graphic background. And there's these cheesy quotes. So basically you could take this and write your own quotes, but I decided to leave all the quotes in there. Would you mind reading this one?
Friends Friends bring happiness into your life. Best friends bring coffee.
I met my wife. Yeah, I went to college. Went Evangel University down in Springfield, Missouri. Went for film because I wanted to study film, and eventually met my wife, who we're married today. And I met you as well.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that.
Did I become your wife?
I wish. You were taken. You never be time for me at the Dateland. What's that? Those were the days, though. I like just the memories. But hey, I've got a little thing here. The dogs of New York hath spoken. Let's make sure the volume's up here. So here's a little recap of me and Mark's friendship and almost marriage.
Selling service. Selling is service. Service is selling. Service. A smart, brisk, gallon-looking Estelina to Harvest Fest. What does she have to have the rest of?
So for those who are just listening, there are photos and videos of both Zach and I. One of them is with me without a shirt on, touching my nipples.
I don't remember. Was that? I think that was going to the beach, maybe down
maybe
Table
to the
Rock
beach.
Lake.
There was another clip of me with some staged makeup, hair on my face, reading. Excuse me. Reading Grimm's fairy tales on the city bus for Zach.
The city bus of Springfield, Missouri. It was already a small town, but it had a bus. I'd never been on the bus.
There's also images scattered in there of Gentleman Broncos of I forget his character's name, but he's in the ear of the girl he's sitting next to and going while rubbing hand lotion on her hands.
Great movie.
Yes.
Napoleon Dynamite. It's like their sequel film or whatever they came out. Not sequel, but same guys that made that.
Mm-hmm. So that is a little recap of our relationship.
I have some other ones to add to that. Yeah, obviously Adventures on the City Bus. I was asking this girl to Harvest Fest, and I said, Mark, you want to help me out? And Mark is the kind of guy, the kind of friend who doesn't matter what it is, it could be like, you want to go scrub poop out of the... I've never asked him that, but... I'd probably be like, of course I do. I'll be right there. And he probably would. But it was like, hey, do you mind... Basically the question, do you mind me putting this stage makeup on as a beard and you come on the bus and act like you're blend in with society and then you start reading a really old 1800s nursery...
And I really blended in with society.
You had a newspaper, a horrible, like, checkered suit on and like... Yeah. So that went way well.
The stage makeup wasn't even my hair color either. It was like reddish.
You should change your logo. Instead of this microphone here with the bread, you should have like that cartoon version of that guy with the horrible beard on. Yeah, I took a class for makeup. Anyway, but that was not my favorite one. My favorite one was not making eggnog that didn't turn out too well. We tried that. We still drank it though, or ate it like cottage cheese.
We did try it, yeah.
But no, it was I was going to Paris for a school trip, and the night before, I invited you over. I think you had already graduated, but so you came on over. I was in the dorms, and you're like, "You're not leaving to go to Paris until you watch Amelie." Yeah. And so I had never seen it. I had listened to the soundtrack because it's a really good soundtrack, and like, we're gonna watch it, and that's final. And so you came over, we watched it, and then like. It was like 2 a.m. We ended up talking till like 7 a.m. This is after the movie about just life and just getting real. It wasn't just jokes. It wasn't story after story, but it was like just a really great time. And I'll never forget it because it was very meaningful to me. And I didn't get any sleep, which is fine because I was getting on a plane so you could change your sleep cycle. And you're like, oh, you got to stay up all night, man. We're going to watch Amelie. You can pack your bags later. And then we just talking and hanging out. And it was like, wish I could go back.
Which I'm so glad we did because we've been doing that ever since. Our conversations, not just the goofy part, but our conversations have been just like, it's goofy, but then we immediately go into the deep side too. And then we go right back to goofy again.
Which I really appreciate. Yeah, it means a lot to me. Pivotal experiences.
Pivotal life experiences.
Ended up getting married to Jenna. We had met like right after school, but in that same college atmosphere and all that. And so we got married young. That was like 12 years ago. So we've been married for a bit now. And I think jumping right in there, we moved back to Sheboygan, Wisconsin. We're married and some family things came up like the day before the wedding. I love her family. She's got a great, her mother and father-in-law and like just family. They've embraced me. We've kind of, I was excited about that. Yay, grafting into this family. And then she really liked my family. But then some stuff happened the day before. She's like, wait, you never told me about this. And I'm like, well, no, I mentioned that things have gotten patched up and all that. So like there was definitely a lot of upheaval. And that was pretty hard to bring in, especially with that expectation of like, oh, wow, this family's going to take care of me. And this is great. We're moving to your town, having the wedding and all that. So it was just like that kind of blew up in our faces. And it made for a really tough year getting started. On top of that, and I mean, I was in the church, and still to that day, like my pastor came up from Springfield, married us. And like, but I think with everything happening and just all that, like I was more in a place of like, yeah, I don't trust church. I don't think any churches here are going to be the answer for what we're looking for. And they're not really truly living out the call of, so I had a lot of like just high standards, but then also like hurt combined with that. So I'm like, so we just kind of stayed away. Kind of a couple years went by. We're like, like I still believed in God. I had tons of questions. But anyway, yeah, we ended up moving a couple years later, moved for work. I really wanted to get into film. That's what we ended up doing. Was blessed with a job pretty quickly into that search. And we moved away from the family stuff. Kind of some things were patched up, but not really. We're just learning, like, man, there's a lot to learn. And I feel you really get hit hard when you get married. It's like, that's where the real rubber meets the road. There's so much to learn. I'm sure you know.
Oh yeah.
And so, yeah, we moved and like, but I really felt the yearning because I was like, man, let's give this another go. Like, so I started looking for ministries and like really intentional ministries, things where like, you know, we were actually saying what we're doing what we're saying, you know, that kind of thing. So I found this guy, and it was just like by chance, and he was like doing church planning, and he's like, yeah, come on over. It was a very small kind of thing, very organic, but we believe in this kind of different approach. We're not trying to build this thing. We're trying to start a group of people that meet in the living room, and you know, if it goes from there, if it expands, it'll expand to other living rooms. And I was like, oh, I've been reading about this. This was big to me. A big influence at that time for me was Pagan Christianity, which is a book by Frank Walla and the Barna Research Group. And they kind of looked into like, you know, what has the church been influenced by, and in terms of how it's created this thing, you know, how we do church, right? So I was like, man, very compelling. But I was really compelled by the authenticity because this guy,
it's like church through the ages.
Yeah.
It's like, it's what the evolution of church, which is a funny word for the church in itself.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Well, and that's, man. So like just the exemplification of like this guy, particularly this pastor, his name was Reagan. Hey, Reagan, if you're listening.
Hey, Zach. I'm so glad that you put me in the featured list. You didn't even change my name.
Actually, he doesn't even sound like that. He's like Alabama, but he doesn't sound like that. But anyway, he was his thing was discipleship. I'm going to invite you to meet with me, and we're going to do this thing called storying, like making a verb out of story. And we're just going to go through the Bible in that kind of way, and we'll just meet up once a week. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds great. I can commit to that. But yeah, like clockwork, on Monday morning, like I'd get a text and be like, hey, Zach, when are you free this week to meet up? And we'd go get coffee or whatever, go to his house, and he'd take like an hour, and he had this little booklet with Bible stories in it, you know, like, and it was just like basically just the text of the Bible of that story, you know, this verse through that verse, you know, it'd be like anything, like an excerpt from Jonah or this or Jesus or whoever. And he'd go, okay, I'm going to read it. He'd read it. And then he'd go, all right, I'm going to tell you the story from my memory of what I just read. Yeah. And then he's like, all right, well, who are the main characters, this and that? Who was, you know, what was going on? And then we talk about it. And he's like, all right, you know, you tell me the story. And that was the heart. That was it. There was nothing, no frills. There was no like, let's go through this book. It was just like basic. Let's go back into that. And so that was something for me. And I say like in that time, I feel like I committed, or I kind of felt like myself committing back to the journey of like, okay, I can do this again. We're going through a lot of family hurt, a lot of like facing a lot of stuff that was coming up from like my own family, from the death, from the abuse, from this and that and the other, spiritual abuse, all sorts of stuff. So that jump started my faith. And I think, I still had stuff that I wasn't really dealing with, you know, but that was in the closet, and a lot of stuff was changing for better. And like my career was getting off to a good foot. And so that's kind of the story there. Oh, here's another slide. Passion is the bridge that takes you.
Would you like me to read it,
Would
actually?
You?
Yeah. Passion is the bridge that takes you from pain to change. Frida Kahlo. Be the church.
Love it. Yeah. This also. Yeah, I need some more Gentleman Broncos to show up. Hopefully, we need they will.
We need more Gentleman Bronco clips.
I'll talk. Hang on. I need some more of those. I said now. All right. Yeah, we should be getting some.
We need some yeast clips.
Yeast Lords.
Yeast Lords.
Oh. Well, yeah. So anyway, I'll wrap it up. My story and background. I didn't mean to go so long. I apologize. But
go on.
Yeah, many twists and turns, like twists. And we moved a lot, did a lot of stuff. The job was good, you know, just has been good. It hasn't been good lately. I'm a filmmaker. I love what I do. It's great, you know, getting into what I've been able to do, and I love it. It's been very slow lately, so we're kind of rethinking things in terms of what comes next. But
well, slow is an understatement too. I mean, the whole industry has been kind of shot.
Yeah,
I'm sure you could probably go into that.
Oh gosh, yeah. It's from strikes to just work stoppage. We're in Atlanta now. And so this is kind of a film mecca outside of LA and New York. And so there's like enough stages, more stages here than like New York has.
Because the taxes are low, tax breaks for... Yeah.
Exactly. You know it. Yeah. So yeah, sadly it's just been very slow, and that's affected us and all that. But yeah, jumping up to speed. So like we got married, obviously. Here we are now. I've got 3 girls. There they are. Lily, Margot, and Charlotte, yeah, we're just, doing, that's our thing. We're once you have kids, it's like, married's one thing, having kids, you're just like, kind of just puts you into third, fourth, fifth gear with life, and just the need to give to someone else, relent of some selfishness in some ways and so combining all that together, I just felt like the theme, I think in that sense, it was seeking out our place in the body of Christ. Like, what does that look like? What does that mean? And like a lot of people go to church, a lot of people do this. They're not really there. And you just see them, there's not really that level. Maybe it's a box they check. Maybe they're totally fulfilled. I don't know. I can't speak to other people, but for me, it's like, I always wanted something more. Mm-hmm. And I learned that from that one experience of just getting discipled and seeing and that all fizzled too. We had left that town and but just the temporal aspects of here we are now, who's around us and who can, I hate the phrase, well, can we do life with you? But it's kind of, it's for lack of a better phrase, I'm going to use it. Anyway, so that's basically it.
No, thanks for sharing so much about that. I feel like there are aspects of what you said that I either forgot or you had not shared with me prior. So it's nice to be able to hear this, from you and to kind of, I feel like I understand you a little bit more too, even. So I really do appreciate you sharing everything. Yeah. No, it's funny that you shared, a little bit about your faith and kind of falling out, but then finding someone that kind of brought you back in. What I was going to talk about is PRRI. So it's an institute. It's they do a lot of research and get a lot of statistics on kind of the beat of the nation. Not specifically, but they do have a large emphasis on religious statistics. So faith-based, religion, how many people go to church, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, PRRI Institute.
Not Perry. Christina Perry.
They came out with some research from 2023 to a decade from before, so 2013, that whole decade span of time. And they gathered statistics and research over that time to get, a good decade's worth of time. And they found that over that course of time, that church attendance has dropped actually considerably. This specifically is people that have left the church and have decided that they don't believe, whether they're agnostics, they're atheists, they're, whatever the case may be, however they define it, they don't go to church. They don't necessarily think of themselves as Bible believing Christians. And that went down from 31% in 2013 to 24%. That many people, a great exodus from the church. And that's only people that don't believe. There are a great deal of people that actually don't go to church that still believe they're Christians and still believe in the Bible and God as a deity in the sky, however they define that.
Yeah.
But that's even gone down. There are, I think, the latest of this year, there were 41%. They found that 41% of people in America believe that there is a God and they believe in Christianity. They claim as Christianity as their religion, their kind of go-to religion.
Yeah.
There's a whole spectrum as far as what the beliefs are in that, and that's even declined as far as people that actually attend a service, at least one service a week. So you got 41% claim that they're Christian, but then what are the statistics for that?
I see one on there that says, "Don't like the look of the janitor, the church janitor." I can relate to. No, I'm just kidding.
They don't like the look of the church janitor. They give him a bad look.
Janitor Jamestown would rather attend the Landers Theater than see this janitor every week.
So the numbers that I mentioned about the people leaving the church and not believing are very similar to people that are still in the church and are still believing. They attend at least one service a week. So what they found was in 2023, nearly 1/4 of Americans, so 24%, attend religious services, either virtually or in person, at least once a week. So a 7% decline from 31% of people that did in 2013. And that's pretty universal. So I think even they break it down as far as Republican or Democrat. Right. Republican is actually right on point with that. So about 7% decline of people that from 2013 that attend at least one service a week to or just about now, so 2023.
Is it over that 10-year?
Over that 10-year period. And you got that 7% decline of all Americans that have stopped going to church at least one service a week. So they might attend a holiday service like a Christmas or an Easter or something like that. But as far as regularly attending,
they just don't do it. So when you were bringing up that you kind of left, I feel like it kind of goes in line with a lot of these kind of stats. I mean, there's a lot of people that are being disillusioned with the church in many ways. And there's a lot of, they actually go into the statistics as far as what people said, like why they left the church. Politics is one of the things. Their take on like LGBTQ people, for instance, has been a big reason for why people have had an exodus out of church. And it sounds like it's more just things just weren't lining up. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Was I seeing authentic community? Mm-hmm. That was a really big one for me. And like, especially with the absence of authentic family and those relationships not being there. And so like, I really took it hard and kind of had to do some backwards somersaults and to try to regain composure and realize, I'm still loved. There's still other ways that the sun shines through the clouds. It doesn't have to be through the things that you expected it would always ultimately be. And so, I'm grateful to have those low points in life. Sometimes they really do bring back some truth that how did I need to grow in this moment? And so like, yeah, I value it. I'm probably going through a low moment now, and I'm sure I'm going to value it like 6 months from now and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like I'm refocused, on something. I was going to tell you why I chose this title.
Yeah, please do. Please do. I know we got a little sidetracked.
No, it's okay. Please. And forgive me because I went really long on my like bio, but I just kind of wanted to say who I am, why I'm, what's brought me to this question. But yeah, the search for the truth, especially around that time, I was really grappling. I wrote, my looking for reasons to understand what's going on here. So yeah, I guess I don't know why I wrote that. Actually, that was actually my quote. I
took one of the quotes? No.
It's actually mine. I don't really know why I said
what if that was actually there before you? Am I afloat?
Jonathan, I don't know who that is. He did not say that, so don't plagiarizing.
Inspirational quote. Am I afloat?
Well, this is it. Really, and I think you probably can track with this one, is like everyone's asking, all these questions or, wanting the right answers and the big ones, why does God cause bad things to happen to good people? I think of my mom, who, by the way, was a amazing person. And I think I didn't even talk about that. I didn't even go into that. But like, really, I owe a lot to why I believe what I do from her example. And not from other people who didn't provide that example, but from her specifically and the servant, like, going through, just like excruciating pain and, cancer treatments into the last days of her life, her reaching out to her arms as she asked, she's in this bedroom off her dining room, dying in the hospital bed that we had for her hospice. And she goes, take that one picture down off the wall. My sisters had scribbled, made all these like colored pictures and we taped them with tape on the wall. Pulled just that one off. I want to see Jesus. Okay. So my dad, I think, pulled it off and and it was just like, what? You can't make this stuff up. Like, it was the most insane moment I've ever seen. End of life experience. Oh, just like that is kind of been something that's propelled me. And so the reason I say that is like, we struggle with the age-old question, what is truth? And that becomes an interesting thing, especially in this time and age, with just like, I think a predominant philosophy now is that of relativity. Your truth, my truth. And really kind of, we're in a different era. We're in a postmodern age. We've always been, because that's what we were born into, right? We didn't choose the era we were born. Middle Ages might have been a little different. Victorian age might have been a little different. So yeah, I feel like I've seen I'm no one that smart. I'm not trying to come here like, oh yeah. But like, I've heard every like argument, ploy. I've seen every type. I feel like I've seen every type of caricature of person in terms of like the religious world and everywhere else. But so I guess what I'm trying to say is it's really equipped me to ask really better questions, not assume that I know where I'm at or what I'm doing. I'm trying to find the answer. So like, I guess that's my whole point. So I don't, and like I said, I don't claim to know what I'm about to bring up, in terms of my journey and where it's brought me. I'm not the arbiter of truth here, and I'm not someone who's written about this. I'm just trying to learn. I want to know the truth, and like, it's just brought me. It was funny because the pieces fall where they may, right? Okay. Oh, what about this? You turn over a rock, and you're like, that's not where it belongs. So that's kind of where I, just to preface that. Oh, you want to read this one?
In a gentle way, you can shake the world.
Yeah, that's right.
Mahatma Gandhi.
Thank you so much, Gandhi. Yeah. Oh. That was actually my voice. I couldn't find that. It was a GIF, and I just added the audio to it. I spent a lot of time till last night on these really important matters. So my truth journey started with 9/11. Mm-hmm. So
very lighthearted topic.
Very lighthearted. Yeah, let's talk about death and mayhem here for a second. My father-in-law. So I was dating his daughter, and I hadn't met him yet. So they came down to where we were living in Springfield, Missouri. I was still finishing up school, and they stayed at the Drury Inn and Suites. Anyway, so I was going up. She was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go get dinner. Let's go up and meet them there in their room." So we went up to the room. Oh, hey, nice to meet you. And literally, there wasn't much. He's a very serious guy, and he goes, he's sitting down, putting his tennis shoes on in the chair. I think my mother-in-law now was brushing her hair, getting ready. Oh yeah, we're almost ready. Oh, nice to meet you guys. And he goes to me, and he goes, they lied to us about 9/11. And he's like sitting looking with his like eyes. He's like 6'3".
Super, just
just very serious. He always looks angry, but he's actually not angry all the time. He just has an angry look. And so I said, and I'm the kind of guy, I'm the kind of guy that's like, if you have an interesting tale or something that's like out of the norm, I want to hear about it. I want to hear about all the oddities. I love the Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum. I love all that stuff. It's just so funny. The folklore. I love it all. So of course, I'm going to be like, do tell me more. I'm dating your daughter. So I learned this later on. Their family, their immediate family, like her and her two older brothers, and they had gone down on a week before 9/11 happened. Mm-hmm. This would have been like Labor Day, September. And they lived in upstate New York. They went down there to go as a tourist. Let's go tour New York, Manhattan. And they went to the top of the Trade Center. And so they got in the elevator, went to the top. But to get to the elevator, you have to pay like $10 or whatever. And there's a line out the door. And they're like, well, this is unusual. A lot of people want to go to the top. Well, there's 12 elevators. There's only one working. The other 11 were all flagged off, under construction. There's like massive drilling. All this stuff going on according to them, according to what they experienced. And they said, that's kind of weird. Well, it was, whatever then. A week later, they demolished into dust. Mm-hmm. And they were a week before that in there. And anyway, so it was just kind of like, whoa. So that really opened up my father-in-law's eyes. Mm-hmm. He looked at that and he's like, huh. And I think things start clicking. He's a very intelligent man. But anyway, so he was telling me all that. And I'm a curious mind. I want to know why and what. I ask inconvenient things at inconvenient moments. But so I was like, I started looking into it after he told me that. We eventually got married. But like that whole year, I was going down the rabbit hole, man. Looking at, once you look up one thing, it opens the door to the next, and you're like, okay, well, that's interesting. Well, they lied to us about that. Well, what about this? And it's just this, that, and the other, and you're like, oh my gosh. And so then I became like an encyclopedia, like just devouring books, devouring microphones, just like, okay. And my wife's like, what, you got enough information there? Like,
let me tell you.
Push this button. I have all these little buttons. Push this button and it'll tell you a 9/11 fact. 1300 actually. Wait, what? But I found out really quickly with all my excitement. It was like evangelism, right? You like learn something, you get really excited about it, passionate, and you want to change the world. But is everyone on board with that? So like, social media, this is 2012, by the way. And I remember like posting and doing all this, engagements. And people, I guess my ideas weren't really that welcome. There wasn't a lot of people that were like, it was mostly, and I got most of the, I'm doing the downward thumb symbol from like mainly my Christian friends. A lot of people in the church that did not feel comfortable with me questioning these things. It rubbed people the wrong way. Mm-hmm. And it could have been my youthful ignorance in a lot of the ways that I was at that time. But like, either way, it was I just kind of like, where are the open-minded people? Why can't I talk about this stuff? No. But I was just like really puzzled, and I'm like, this world, whatever I opened up, whatever thing I opened up to find this information. Thank you, father-in-law. I'm like, well, this sucks because now I know something, or I think I know something, and it's just like bothering me. I want to know mainly, where's the justice? Like, why are bad things happening like this to this level, and why are there so many people that should be good and should know about this? And that really made me mad, mainly at the church a little bit too, because I'm like, well, of all the people that should be like willing to like remedy this, you would think it would come from that side of things over anyone. But yeah, so I was, anyway, all that to say, I was going to all these things. I went to Richard Gage's documentary premiere of, he's the founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, which is an activist group. They had a petition, I think, at one point, and this is like 10 years ago. It's probably more now, but like they had like 2,000 architects, engineers, metallurgists, physicists that signed on saying, yes, we want a new investigation into those attacks because a third building came down. It was like, Jeff. Only 14 frames. Anyway, just stuff like that. You're like, a third tower fell down, building 7. Okay. Anyway, all that to say, I'm not going to go through the whole encyclopedia, but I guess the big thing is, why this injustice? Like, why is this happening? And why is it just crickets out there?
Yeah.
No one seems to pay any mind. So it really opened up my mind. And I'm like, yeah, someone at that time who was wrestling with faith. Oh, sorry. If it's the, you go ahead.
If it's the right chair, it doesn't take too long to get comfortable in it. Lordship
I think that was the actual quote too. I didn't change it. But yeah, so I guess the thing I was wrestling with too is like, people are like, why are you putting so much stock into this? You know, like you should be really concerned about other things and don't worry about that. Worry about your family. And I was like, no. But like, I was like, well, this is truth, right? Where I'm looking into the truth. And I thought it was my burden to do that. And it came to the point, I was like, I don't care. Prove me wrong. I don't care about being right. Like, just show me that this is all wrong then. If this is, you know, but no one came out of the woodwork really. People would throw their little jabs. You know, I'm sure you've seen this too in your own world where it's like you put some stuff out there that's jarring to people and they just don't like it. It makes them uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And that's cognitive dissonance. It's like, you know, it's that idea of like, I was told something and it was reinforced over the years. This is how this thing is, whatever that thing is. Now you're bringing me new information that contradicts that and you expect me to be warm and welcoming to that? Well, it goes against my psychological, you know, it's just kind of a psychological thing. I get it.
So you jump through hoops to explain it away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
for
like
the defense, the cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. There you go. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So saw a lot of that and I'm like, I don't know. I got so militant about it. Anyway. But yeah, again, we're taught Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And so that would be like, in my opinion, the big T truth. You know, there's the little T truth. Yeah, obviously figuring out what happened in 9/11, that's important, right? What happened over here, what happened over there, this war, that war. All important. We need to have justice. But like, so there's that truth. And he is the way, he is literally the noun, the way, the truth, and life. Okay. But yeah, I was just confused. The people saying that were the most asleep on these other issues. So it seemed counterintuitive to me. I'm like, So that got me into a real little thorn in my side there. Like, okay. And it's always been there, that little thorn. I tried to pull it out, but it's still there. Mm-hmm. Little slivers. Anyway, this makes no sense to me at all. I guess it's Shakespeare. Better 3 hours too soon than a minute too late.
Well timed.
Wish the hand massage was in there. Yeah. It's like a pound of lotion. Oh.
Progress lies not in enhancing what is, but in advancing towards what will be.
I am the science.
Fauci.
I go too far. Yes. Anyway, so kind of just going, and I hope I didn't spend too much time on that. I just want to breeze through as much. Forgive me. Mm-hmm. Extrapolating like forever here. But anyway, so suffice to say, like, you know, person that questions things like that is a conspiracy theorist. You know, that's a conspiracy. You're like talking about conspiracies, which you're talking about other, you know, and so you're in this camp. You're doing that. You're a conspiracy theorist. And that was interesting because you can even go down that rabbit hole. I call it Christian truther. I'm a truther because it was like a euphemism for, but basically like even looking into like declassified CIA documents that are out there in the public now that go, oh yeah, I guess like in the 60s or whatever the Warren Commission was out, the CIA put stories into the press where they're hit pieces, basically. They're fake pieces that said, basically the purpose was to use the term conspiracy theorist and dog them a little bit and be like, you are deranged. That connotates stupidity. You're an idiot and all that. So again, gaslighting, and people that want to know what happened are typically scapegoated into that kind of thing many times, in our world, and based on who's in control, who's really in power. And so again, that's a whole nother echelon of things. But so I was kind of just realizing that, and it was definitely always been something in the back burner of my life that kind of spurred me on. I definitely wound down. I wasn't doing the Facebook posts and all that stuff. That was kind of that election year, Ron Paul for president, it's like to what end, right? And I'm still I live and breathe politics to this day, as do you and other people. And so we're all in that world, but we just don't really have a place to talk about that that's proper, right? Because you can, but you can't. So
it's tough to find good faith dialogues with people.
Yes.
I think I sent you a podcast recently where there actually was some good faith dialogue.
Yeah.
I think in the second half of the episode where they were actually, giving, there was a liberal point of view and then their conservative point of view, but they were talking in friendly terms, and they weren't badgering each other. They weren't dehumanizing or demonizing each other for each other's beliefs or points of view. But it was just, they were giving their points of view, and then, the other person would give their point of view, and they were sharing we love each other, and they're, it was a good conversation.
It's amazing.
It was really refreshing to hear. And you almost don't hear that anymore.
It's a rare thing. It's a joy to experience that. I would do anything for that. Mm-hmm. In fact, we could accomplish that now in a sense, because I know, and it's not like we're trying to compete for where we're at and where we're not at, but it's just we're obviously going to have differences, and even as friends, as buddies, and that's what's so inspirational to me, is that we're able to sit here and very, very likely disagree on a lot of things, but
we already have, even with our conversations. 100%. You brought up stuff, and I'm like, I don't necessarily believe that, but I'm not gonna talk down to you because of that.
No, and it's so loving, man, and this, yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's refreshing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have people in your life that you feel comfortable you can actually do that with, and not everybody has that. I feel like it's actually very rare for people to have somebody in their life that they can genuinely feel comfortable to bring up anything in their life. And I feel like you're one of those friends that can actually do that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. You. No, and it comes from being in the opposite environment of being shamed. Oh, you have an opinion? Mm-hmm. Shame. And that was kind of my upbringing. I had to shed that skin and learn how harmful that really was. And that was kind of going back to just some family origins. Where were you from? What level of, how did you get your information and stuff? Were you welcomed with an idea, and were you allowed to think things? And so for me, it was really very rigid. Mm-hmm. And so it caused me to want to rebel. Mm-hmm. I want to just push through that barrier. I've gone through my very liberal phase, and I've come out and then I kept some of those liberal things and this and that. So political, I don't know what kind of animal, albatross, unicorn I am, but I guess I'm kind of libertarian, and it doesn't matter, but it's not something where you can't. And that's the thing. If you can't discuss ideas for humans, and again, come to the arrival that if I truly believe this, that you were created by God, and you were that you're loved, and that I'm told to love you, and that you're made in love, then I think those things stand true. That we should be able to talk about anything. And it's not meaning that it's easy, because there's just so many barriers, so many things. I guess that's just the price you pay to get to the truth, get to the fact of the matter, or mm-hmm. whatever it is you're trying to get to. But yeah, anyway, so I was going to say COVID, and I'm not going to get into COVID, but in terms of that time period. Mm-hmm. So the themes that go along for me, in my experience, in my mind, were okay, this is a very isolating time. There's misleading guidance concerning health, concerning what we're to believe on all sides. And even to this day, I think there's still confusion. Wait, what? What happened? There's a normalcy bias now where it's I don't know. I had a strong feeling about that, but now I don't know. There's, it's what? A little bit, I don't even want to say the word, but it's that, it's mind. I'm trying to censor myself there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we were told, just stuff like that. So that was a hard time for me personally, because I was all right, am I lukewarm? Where am I at with my faith? And so I guess the question is this: was the church fractured before such things as COVID, mm-hmm. or any of this time? and is, what happened during COVID, because I don't want to ignore it. A lot of people ignore it. I don't want to talk about that. It's too it's going to bring up some bad stuff here. We don't want to get into it. I honestly don't. I don't want to talk about any of the things, but like so I kind of think it was a blessing, because if you were, and I'll speak for myself, I was not really living for the Lord around then that time. I kind of was, but I was more like in my little thing, doing my thing for me. And I was going through my own issues and not really dealing with them. And so, but while also claiming to be in the church and all this stuff. But anyway, I think this was an opportunity for true followers of Christ to be awakened, if you really were in on this, or, and that would be the need being, we need healing, we need unity. And those things were not happening on a global scale by all people, like a lot of people. I don't know who was winning, who was losing there, but like, I didn't see it much happen in the church. In fact, they kind of shuttered their doors physically, and for reasons, good reasons, I'm sure. Anyway, but yeah, like, why are we here? A lot of the stuff was just coming out, it was boiling to it for me as like, what is this? Like, and I realized that like politics and all this stuff, I get really involved in that, and like all the conspiracy and all that stuff, like I get really heated up by that. But I'm like, but this isn't our home. If I truly believe what this is saying, that being the truth of the word, then the kingdom is not here. We're just brought here. We're here to do the things that we're really supposed to be doing. What are those things? So like, I had a mentor that pulled me aside like a month into the pandemic, and he was like a really smart guy. I think like Dennis Whaley. I'm referencing a guy from our old school that was like a really nice guy that really helped a lot of students. His name was Dennis Whaley.
I'd say one of the most inspirational people in both of our lives.
Yes, you and me both got to glean and be affected by him. Oh. And sadly, he passed right when we were still in his midst. So it was really hard for me and you as well. It's like, the weight. So
it's one of those people that we just keep remembering.
Oh yeah,
yeah. He just kind of comes up in thought all the time.
Man, I wish I had a picture I could bring up right now. I should have had something, but yeah, this guy that was kind of like Dennis Whaley. Basically, he was a wise man. He said, Zach. And this is right when the pandemic had happened. I was complaining and bemoaning, and I was just like, I don't like being isolated. I don't know what's the future. I was worried. I was anxious. And he says, you know what? I think now is the time, is the best time ever for you to fall in love with the Lord. And I was like, and it really, what he's saying is like any time would be a good time, but like especially now. And I was like, and so I took that to light. I took that to heart. I was going to use the quote, COVID may have sack-tapped the church. You can cut that out if you want. I don't know why that was relevant, but it was in my notes. Don't remember where I was going with it. But
for those who are interested in what sack-tap means.
www. No, do not Google. Sorry. Woo. Anyway, what divides us pales in comparison to what unites us. I feel like this actually was an actual quote in the Slake template, but I actually ended up using it kind of to bridge my next thought.
Actually kind of works with what you're talking about. The church being, ununified.
Yeah, so anyway, it was a wake-up call for me. COVID was a wake-up call not to be right, not to be this purveyor of the truth of the information, but mainly the truth of who I am spiritually, who I was made in the image of, and what my purpose is here. And so I'm still learning what that is now. Yeah, so I realized one thing, all this stuff to say, all the conspiracy stuff to say, it's like, I hate injustice. I hate it. That's what's feeling this, like, desire to want to know why it's happening. Mm-hmm. And there's definitely a juxtaposition in the church with those who've been taken in to the political idolatry that human government will save us. There's that thing. That's a belief. It's never come true yet, I don't think, in human history. Has it actually happened? There might be elements of like, government's great, for certain things, but like, and I'm not against government, I'm not an anarchist, but like, anyway, but then the juxtaposition being, they believe that, but they also believe, and Jesus will too. And I think Marmalade Henry said that.
That's not a real person, is it?
So yeah, so I guess it kind of validated for me. It's like, okay, all this to say, during this time, it's like, well, the little T truths, the little like, I want to know the truth about this. Those are validated because I think like, there's a purpose for them. Like, I think there's a trend in wanting to
be good, wanting good for all, wanting what the Lord wills. And I think that's ultimately good, even though there's not a lot of evidence of bad. Mm-hmm. But like with that said, so yeah, like it kind of brings me into the main thought. And I hope in my intro, I don't even want to call this an intro. I feel like I've talked forever, so I apologize. This is a lot of stuff, but
no need to apologize.
Thank you. Yeah, how do I say that? Rescind that apology. Rescind.
We just thumbed up to each other.
Yeah. So anyway, back to this is the big question that I wanted to kind of really hound on. That question, like, why are so many people leaving the church? Kind of like what you were addressing earlier in the stats and stuff. Like, whoa, looking at this 10-year time. Yeah. So I kind of have a theory and something it's been boiling in me for the last 5 years about this. And so that's kind of what I wanted to mainly talk about. Yes. Trigger warning. I don't know if it's a trigger warning. It might involve some Nephilim. They might come out of the woodwork at some point and go do some weird noises that I don't know if are accurate historically, if they do or not, but that might come up. But
they're the ones that bring the cheese and crackers.
That's correct. On massive platters, like 9 feet long. Anyway, so the biggest conspiracy, let me just write it this way, of all time, that I believe to be the biggest, I don't know another word for it, conspiracy, is to deceive Adam and Eve that they could be like God and that they could have, they could be apart from him and be completely at that level and whatever that entails. And basically all the knowledge, all the good, all the things onto their shoulders. They could, that's what you desire and that's what you deserve. You deserve it. So that's therefore, and they believed it. And so that's how that tale goes. So yeah, that's kind of the biggest question. There's like, why are some people leaving? And so I kind of have just been doing a lot of deep dives into like a lot of people that have talked about this stuff and come away with some, I think, compelling evidence, or maybe even just some understandings of like why people have left. And so, like I said, like there's, I honestly believe, where did I go here? Oh, here we go. Like we're told, nothing can separate us from the love of God. There's that whole idea that like, once you're in, you're good, you're in, like, and I think that's how so many people operate, is that they're just kind of told this information. I was told, pray the prayer, do these things, check out, but like the more I accept whatever you're being told, the more I've gone down this journey, I can't check out anymore. I feel like there's a kind of an indebtedness to like this information, but like, if this is really true, if whatever this is that we've kind of ignored, and I feel like a lot of churches have ignored, a lot of people have just, you don't hear messages preached on this at all. Even seminaries are kind of like, oh, we don't touch that. We kind of assume, or we just don't really touch it.
Or it's too taboo or risky to talk about.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah. It rubs people the wrong way, I think.
Because it's all about getting people in the pews and, they want to touch on topics or make you feel good to be able to have people come in and then retain those people that come in, week after week.
Right. And I think that's exactly, it's like the lowest common, it's like Occam's razor, if you've ever heard of that reasoning tool.
Occam's razor.
Occam's, thank you. Occam's razor is like, the easiest explanation is the correct explanation. Like, so if that seems to be the case, it's like, well, yeah, money, we need to fund basically this ministry. And the best way to go about that is to really just kind of stick to these safe areas. We'll talk about the gospel, we'll talk about this and sin and all that, but we're not going to go into the whys. And I think people like myself included, and a lot of people, I'm not going to, people get dogged all the time. They fell away. They don't go, they're not part of this, and there's just this idea. I've heard it from the other side where it's like, oh yeah, they fell away. They're no longer following the Lord anymore and this and that. And I'm just like, what? I want to hear the other side of the story. I'm like kind of guy, like from a legal standpoint, you always get the two sides of each story, to get a case. Let's hear both sides. Of course, they're not always at the table, right? And so you just assume that, and that's what we're left with. And I think that's dangerous, but why it's dangerous? Because like, there's a reason. And I think truth is important. And without it, like, I think that's what gets us into this mess. And like, if we're not going to address it and talk about it, but anyway, so I know I'm spinning around here. I'll just jump right in. This is what kind of got me going into Genesis. And I'd heard a teacher, his name was Rob Skiba, and he kind of brought me into this. I was listening to him. And so I'm just going to read right from Genesis 3. Yeah. This is Genesis 3:14. I don't remember what version. I think there's some THs in there, so it might be King James, so I apologize for the... But it says, 3:14, then the Lord, this is right after the Adam and Eve thing, the greatest conspiracy of all time, or the first conspiracy of all time, depending on how you look at it. He said to the woman, the Lord God said to the woman, what is that you have done? And the woman said, the serpent deceived me and I ate. And the Lord God said to the serpent, well, because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and above all beasts of the field. And on your belly you should go, and the dust you shall eat in all the days of your life. It says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. And he shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. And jumping ahead, I'm going through chapters forward in Genesis. So we're skipping 4 and 5 and going to like where things are at now. And this is Genesis 6, verse 1. And it says, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth. This is past Adam and Eve and all that, and like maybe a few generations down, past Enoch and all these other big old patriarch donkey gunks. And so anyway, and daughters were born unto them, but the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them as wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also flesh, and his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the land in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, and the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. In verse 5, let me jump to that. And God saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air. So just this whole creation. For it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. That's a lot. That's a lot to just throw at you like that. And it's a lot of here's a whole paragraph here. I just want to extrapolate a few things and move on, or hopefully, kind of just stick to that. And that being in Genesis 3. So it's like something that's happened. There was an event. There was a deception. There was the serpent. There was these characters, right? Adam and Eve and the serpent. And now God responds. In his holiness, he comes in. Normally he would walk the garden. There was this relationship, but something transpired. As we all know, there's the shame and there's the clothing and all this stuff the nakedness was hidden. Mm-hmm. Now we're understanding this idea of shame being brought in. The wording, going back to Genesis 3, is crazy to me. There'll be enmity between the serpent and the woman, the offspring, the seed. And I started extrapolating that, looking at other people, and just getting into the weeds here a little bit. The seed. So looking up that word in the Hebrew, in the dictionary, the Strong's H2 Concordance 2233, which is Zerah in Hebrew, which means the seed. What is the makeup of the seed? And I looked at, the synonyms, the other words that go along with that. And that one of them is semen, meaning a man's semen. The genetic makeup, the building block of a human, this idea of what the origin, basically, of a person, that was what seems to be at stake. Now, before everyone's oh my gosh, dude, haven't you read all the stuff? There's a lot of, most, I should say, probably, I don't know if it's most, but seems to be a majority of scholars, people, pastors, seminaries teach the son of Seth theory, which is basically that Seth, the son of Adam and Eve, populated, and he was the big old grandpa of nations. And so he's brought in all these people, and then when the Genesis 6 mentions that all of a sudden they grew big and started doing these things and yearning after the women and all this stuff, well, that was just kissing cousins. It gets a little bit explained away in that kind of sense, where it's just well, it's just a natural occurring thing. The giants, just like we have giants today, right? But anyway, so there's that. That's kind of the, I guess, that reaction to that. People don't go there. We don't really talk about this. I've never once in my life, I've been a Christian all my life, I've never heard a sermon on this. It's the weird YouTube guys. Anyway, so it goes on and on and on. I'm not going to go into all these things. It could take days, but there's a lot of stuff in the Old Testament where it's just I've always wondered why this was. And we always question, I think the biggest thing, why are people so angry? Myself included, I've been angry about this. Why is God genocidal? Why is he telling to wipe out women, men, and children, all blah, 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 and their dogs, and their dog dinky, and their lizards, and the creeping things of the air, the creeping things of the ground, and the flying things of the air, right? Why? What is this corruption? And you look into it's like plain as day. It was never about just simple sin, disobedience, the behavior modification ideation of like, pharisaical, do the right things, push the right buttons here. It was never about just that. I mean, that's part of it. It's the heart. It was everything, because God wants everything. And when he designed us to relate to him and commune and imagine having a meal with God, sitting there in the garden, like what would that even look like? I can't even, like, I'm just going into like fantasy mode here. Yeah, go into David and Goliath, you go into the Israelites waiting 40 years, and all of a sudden, okay, now go take Jericho, and they're, oh, by the way, you're like grasshoppers to them. Well, it's biblical literalism. You can't say that. That's just a metaphor. Maybe not. I don't know. I wasn't there. And I'm not going to sit here and say I know everything, because I don't. I'm willing to be wrong. But this narrative really intrigues me because there's a big question here. And going back to the main question, getting out of the weeds here, got a slide here of a different levels. Almost looks like an evolutionary type thing, like the monkeys come to humans, but it's actually like a man 6 foot, and then we have a 36 foot tall Nephilim giant that looks dumber than rocks. Sorry. Anyway, there's could go into a lot of stuff, and I don't mean to go into a lot of stuff because I don't want to just tank the whole thing into this, whatever you want to call it, this thing. But this is what gets me, is like, Jesus comes back to redeem all. He comes at a certain time, and there's probably like a level of peace, and there's like hundreds of years of just nothing, no prophetic activity, apparently. If you look into Old Testament like history, which I don't even know that well. I'm always rereading it and be like relearning stuff, like it's actually very vast. But the overall theme is, yes, there is genocide, there is this, there's these killings, there's slayings, there's blood. But why? And I guess here's my question. Were some of these things, like let's talk about Jericho, were they human? Or were they corrupted flesh? Were they to the point where there was no possible way to be redeemed because they were a mockery? They were a concoction of the disobedience of the fallen ones brought in this kind of thing to mock the very idea that Jesus could one day come in the future and redeem mankind through the blood and no other way. In other words, is God finite? I don't believe that to be true. I don't know. I don't think so. But like, was there a plight? Was there something at stake here that we've just completely disregarded because of precious moments theology, where it's like, and we teach our children, the animals are so cute on the ark. And then like, look at this precious story. Well, there's like genocide, there's mutilation, there's this and that, there's genital decapitations and all sorts of weird stuff in the Old Testament that really couldn't make a good movie without censorship. Like, I don't really want to see that, honestly, but maybe make a good, like, I don't even think Game of Thrones would put some of that stuff in there. But
the Bible would probably put Game of Thrones to shame.
But yeah, I mean, not to sensationalize anything here. That's not my goal either. Like I said, I don't know anything. I don't know everything is what I meant to say. I'm just a guy wanting to know why this trend exists and where are we at? And like, if this is a viable reason, maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe there's more, and I'm just discounting a lot of things, but honing in on this one thing. But it's been something I hear over and over and over. It's like, why? I just don't see the consistency. Jesus coming here doing his ministry, and he is loving, and he is the Pax Romana of rabbis, and he's going, and he's not overthrowing the Roman Empire. He did not conquer. He did not make all things right. In fact, things were pretty crappy when he left, like in terms of like how things were and like where things went. Like, look at the Middle Ages, look at 9/11, look at all these things. Like, he didn't redeem that, so obviously he wasn't the propitiation for all of creation. He was the propitiation for what needed to be done from the beginning. And so I don't know. I think a lot gets discounted, and that's kind of where I'm at in this journey. Possible explanation. It's not a finite. This is the answer right here, guys. Right here, I have it. The bad news is time flies. The good news is you're the pilot. And nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. So, and again, I really appreciate you. Thanks for letting me say. Oh, gosh. All of this. And I again, this is kind of one of those topics that, like, not a lot of, thank you for your patience, for real. Like, this doesn't get a lot of breathing time. And I feel like I've said a lot, and I welcome anything you have to say in response or anything that you want to comment on. That's basically all I really had to say. There was, I kind of wanted to surmise and say, like, all this to say, I think there's beauty. This is what's compelled me to get back into the story. I'm a filmmaker. That's what I do for a trade. But I see the story of, like, okay, who are we? What is our role in this big thing? Sometimes we feel very meaningless and insignificant. Like we're just really not part of the full on. Like, we're not making a difference. And when Jesus says, they're like, "What's the biggest thing? What's the biggest thing we need to do?" And he says, "You need to love God and love people." I think that kind of that's basically it. Like, when you divert from that, when you divert from the big T truth, I say little t and big T. The little t's would be like, okay, what's the truth about what's really happened to the Palestinians right now, or what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, or anywhere in this world, at that orphanage down the road with that weirdo. Like, what's really happened? Those are important things. I don't think, but, like, all that to say, like, where's the focus lost, and why is the church so broken and fractured and continuing to be what it is, and kind of in our world here in Western evangelical Christianity? Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why. I don't know. I say that with open arms, wondering if I'll ever find out, but that's where I'm at.
First of all, thank you for sharing everything. I can tell you put a lot of, like, thought and process into your notes and everything. And it was really nice to hear, because, like, this, I mean, for those who are listening, this isn't the side of Zach Kidder that I see all the time. I mean, we do have conversations, and I would say I do see majority of what you talked about, but I feel like you really put more thought knowing that we're going to be recording. So I feel like I saw a little bit more. It was kind of like a fuller picture than what our typical phone conversations are like. So thank you for opening up. I think you are asking all the right questions. I mean, I think your heart is in the right place, that you are people focused. You are more interested about the well-being of people around you as opposed to yourself. It's a very selfless way of looking at the world. Like you were talking about, what's happening with, like, Ukraine, Russia, in Israel and Palestine, and the geopolitics with that, and how people are impacted. Not just the surface level of, like, oh, this is what I see on the news. It's like, how are people impacted by that? I think you are asking the right questions with that. And I think you are asking the right questions, with the Bible, as far as, you're kind of challenging the status quo narrative that the church gives you. Of course, a lot of the stuff that you talked about, I do have different thoughts on that. I wouldn't necessarily say that I disagree, although I do disagree with you on some points. I have different viewpoints on other things, and I think that's where we wrestle with the scriptures, and we wrestle with what is truth all the time. I think every single person does it. I mean, if you are a Bible literist, inerrancy and everything that goes along with that, I feel like there's not too much room to wrestle with that.
Yeah.
But if you are honest with what you are reading, if you are honest with what you are hearing in the church, you should be wrestling with the scripture. Yeah. Every single person should be wrestling with it. That's what we do. We negotiate with what the Bible says. I wouldn't even say the literalists even take the entirety of the Bible to heart. Because, like you were talking about, you've got, areas of, like, genocide, and you've got Levitical laws that nobody really adheres to. and it's this cognitive dissonance. It's this explaining away and trying to justify everything so that it fits your current affair, political, social view of what you should be as a Christian, what you should be as, if you're a Jewish person, following the Bible, if you're a Hindu following, or if you follow Islam and the Quran, if you follow the Quran. So Yeah, everybody wrestles with it. Everybody negotiates with the text, and it's hard to find an absolute truth with everything. I think the best way you can do is dig as deep as you can and come up with a plausible solution.
Yeah.
To basically say that things are inerrant and unrefutable is just such a disservice to not only yourself but to humanity. So and I don't think I believe there's a God, but if there is a God, I would think that he would hope that we all wrestle with the truth as well.
Yeah. Wow. That's well said, man. Love that. Yeah. How can you not? And like you and I were, I've known you over 10 years and, 15 years, maybe. I don't know. Like, I see the sincerity in you and even just going into social media, like the level of, consistency that you have in terms of asking really tough questions in the way, and what you're looking at in posts, in your posts, and just things like that, where it's just like, it's unearthing something where it's like, you either do this and go, all right, he's asking a question. He's asking a little too many questions. And I felt that kind of vibes from people. And I think that's the majority. I think I don't think I could start a denomination today and go, I'm going to create a denomination called the Assemblies of Unearthing the Nephilim of God. Like, what? That's like, well, it's something that's kind of like, these are some things that may have been, they may have influenced this, and that might be the answer for that. But end of the day, it's like you said, we are wrestling, and we're in the here and now too. So it's like there's only so much that I wasn't there. I can rely on this. I can rely to this to a certain level. But saying irrefutable, inerrant. I don't know if that really gets you anywhere. And I've seen people do that too. And it's great if you're like the most incredible. I'm not a scholar. I'm just a guy.
It makes you feel good. It makes you feel good when you have all the answers explained to you. So if everything is inerrant, you really have nothing to negotiate with.
Yeah.
And so everything is explained. Everything is black and white. Everything is, this is the way you should live, and this is the way you should do this and this.
Yeah.
And it feels comfortable.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody wants to feel comfortable. They want that.
Yeah.
I can see why people desire that, and why people would want to, soak in that comfort. But like you said, step out of your comfort zone, you're going to see a whole brand new world that actually feels more like reality.
It's funny you say that. Yeah. There's a security blanket to putting these things in place like that, like those, maybe even a facade to some people, but like, oh yeah, I cannot be challenged here. And like, I feel like those are the people that are least likely maybe to have a debate. How often do you see debates, by the way? I don't see them very often. We see political debates, but those are those things, right?
I see things called debate, like quotation mark quote.
Oh, okay. Discussions, or are you saying like?
I would say
jabby jabbers.
Jabby jabbers.
So we gotta go.
It's I'm going to tell my quote unquote truth, which is my dogma.
Yeah.
And I don't care what you say because I'm going to talk over you. And it's honestly kind of frustrating.
It's the talking heads, right? You're saying like that kind of level, right? Like where there's it's like whoever has the loudest voice wins. Okay.
Yeah, because like you bring up the Nephilim and even some of these scriptures that talk about it. I think I've told you before. I disagree. I think the Nephilim is a literary device, because a lot of the Old Testament and even the New Testament is very inspired by the book of Enoch. Enoch was written a long time ago, and even you get like Levitical laws some of them are directly ripped off of like the laws of Hammurabi, and which are like old Egyptian laws, and even I think Assyrian maybe even. I'll have to look into that again. But you get a lot of this. Once you start looking at the history of things, it starts kind of breaking down what you thought was actually real, looking at surface level, just looking at the text of the Bible. And then you start looking at the history, and it's like, okay, things aren't as clear cut as I thought they might be. Honestly, I just finished a book called De-Weaponize by Ryan Canty. I'm actually going to be doing a talk with him pretty soon here.
Oh, no way.
I would highly suggest the book. It's really good. He brings up a lot of kind of taboo-ish topics within the church, ones that are very clear cut in their ideology, especially within the last like 50 years, especially within like evangelicalism. But he goes through whether it be the history or breaking down the text, breaking down the original Greek or Aramaic or Hebrew, and talking about the words and how they could be interpreted and how they are interpreted to use as weapons against a certain group of people that are usually marginalized. And so it's been very eye-opening in a lot of that. I allow myself to listen to people like Dan McClellan. I think I brought that to you, and he brings up a lot of those counterpoint narrative of what is truth and what is dogma, what is somewhere in between, where it's like we have this truth, but how is it broken up and interpreted into different dogmas? And he kind of talks a lot about that. You get the book Jesus and John Wayne. I think I mentioned that to you. That was a
TBD on that one.
Super eye-opening experience reading through that. It kind of goes to the history of the rise of evangelicalism through Pentecostalism, and the big figures within that, and how they were interconnected with politics of the day, and pushing forward to now. So once you start digging into a lot of this stuff, it really makes you think, and really makes you wrestle even harder with what is the truth of everything.
Yes.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You just gave me way more material than, and it's great. I appreciate, I'm the kind of guy that like, bring it on. Like I want to hear it. So I'm going to read, it's still on my list. I need to watch that. I need to read that.
Well, you'll have to listen to my podcast to get these references.
How much do I have to pay for that?
$9.99 a month.
It's great, man.
4 easy payments of $9.99.
Well, it's like if you were to go from here, like, okay, well, what's next? Like, if I were to ask someone asked me that, what's next for you then? If because a lot of you said it's really dismal and like kind of dark. Like conspiracies are very dark and negative. That's why I don't even really like dwelling on them. If I get with people like my father-in-law, it kind of could turn this, what do you call that, a whirlwind of like negativity. It kind of just like kind of goes downhill, and there's no like da-da-da. And we never arrive back at Jesus. It's never like, well, hey, you know what? Because if we truly believe and our faith is completely aligned in that direction, right? Then I should technically be saying, he's on the throne, he's in control. Why do I need to worry about it? The justice will come, whether it's administered to my knowledge or not, and hopefully it does. And I want to fight for what's right, but like, what do I need to do now? And so like, I think like the takeaway for me now, it's like community. Like because I disagree, not with you. I don't know, maybe.
Oh, please, if you disagree.
Well, I'm specifically on people that say, well, like, because I know you wrestle, and especially with like this subject matters you're tackling now, are like deconstruction and what is going on with the church and why are we. It's a lot of, we don't have solid answers on every single thing because it's circumstantial, a lot of it. But what are the trends? What are this? Like you brought up the stats and stuff, and so I honestly believe that we are the church if we're called and we believe, if we believe in Jesus, he is the way, the truth, and life. We come through him. That's it. It's very simple, and it's been overcomplicated. And the overcomplication, I think, leads to kind of an evil offshoot of events. And one of them being like the kingdom is on earth. So now we have such and such megachurch blinkety bonkety that's doing its thing and just kind of taking the focus away. And it's putting the person on the throne, the cult of personality, this influencer, this guy, this preacher, whoever, and that kind of thing can be good in its moments, right? And there's some good takeaways, there's good teachings, but I've got friends that have come, literally right now, I've got friends right now that have come from Mark Driscoll's Mars Hill, and they've dealt with that fallout because they were in that, and they left it, and they experienced it, and they saw like an example of spiritual abuse where this was not good. This is not what was prescribed or an idea. And like, well, it's like, what is the church? Like, do we even have, there are pastors in the Bible? It's like, not really, actually. There's overseers. And yeah, there is pastors mentioned like once. But, sorry, not to go down a rabbit hole here, but like, my takeaway is, it's very practical. We are a kingdom of priests. If we truly practice what we preach, then we should be administering those gifts. If you're not allowed to use them, then you should be asking, why am I not allowed to use these? Why am I going in? Why is everything revolving, around a sermon? Is that really what all entails? Why is that? Is there no other guys here with the gift of teaching and the ability, like you have a gift of learning and you cultivate teaching throughout. Maybe you have the gift of teaching, I don't know, but like that kind of thing where you just want to teach and get into it. But there's probably a lot of other people, but they're silenced because of the system, which is an authoritarian system, a hierarchical system too, clergy versus laity. That all came about through the paganization of things. Like and that's why I can't recommend it enough. Pagan Christianity is a must read. It's got to get on the shelf. You can take mine.
That's why I haven't started yet.
Oh yeah, did I?
Yeah.
Sorry. I overhype it. I know, but it's actually really good because it's just factual. It's just stuff like, oh, here's this, anyway, not dogging traditional church at all because I know a lot of good people in there. And they're doing a lot of really good things and using those resources to help people. Like there's one in town here that like they have everything going on program-wise. Like they got this AA thing, and people are truly finding like freedom from drugs and stuff and getting off the streets. And so like, how do I I don't want to not partner with that, right? Like there's some good, and like I just want to discount everything, but I do think that like at the heart of things, I think for me, like I'd have to question, am I able to use my gifts? Is my family, can I strengthen them? Can I lead them towards the truth? And like, are we gospel-centered? Like, are we truly living out our mission, true mission, not just to like be comfortable and like ignore a lot of stuff, like, but are we really facing things and growth? And so that's kind of where I'm at. Sorry, I didn't mean to be so long-winded on that, but
no, don't, like I said, don't apologize. Be as long.
I don't know how long
as you want.
I feel like there's like a buzzer. That's it.
Yeah. No, it's. Yeah, I don't even know what to say anymore. I feel like we've said so much about it.
Fair enough.
But like you even brought up points of interest you think about on social media and challenging kind of the status quo.
Yeah.
I've had people message me and tell me I'm outright wrong, or in the case of, let's say, Palestine and Israel, call me anti-Semitic, or at least imply it. And I even put out a quiz, like a
poll,
like
a voting thing.
I put out a poll and just asking people, like how much interest or how much dedication are you put into learning about what's going on in the Middle East right now? And it was, I don't know anything at all. I have listened to the news and know some basic information. And then I even have I have extensive research, and I put in parentheses, like I've read books, I've read reports, I've read, all this stuff, and really, done my research. Yeah. And I only had maybe a few people that actually responded with, I have extensive research. And I reached out to each of them, and I was like, I'm really interested in what resources you have for this kind of thing, because I want to learn more. I want to learn more. I want to be able to, even if it's, a counterpoint to what I've read, I want to read it.
Yeah.
And there was one person that I was like, give me some resources. And they're like, well, I only really watched a couple of YouTube videos. I can send you those links. And I hear him thinking extensive research doesn't necessarily mean a couple YouTube videos.
I was going to say, as a conspiracy guy, right? I guess I'm that guy. I've gotten so much crap like that. Well, this is a knee-jerk reaction. Oh, hang out on YouTube. Yeah, YouTube. And it's like, so I've always taken that as, oh, no, I want to be holistic, honest here and actually do more than just that. And so I've always striven to be above just that margin of you're going to say YouTube, low level, whatever comes in your algorithm thing.
And I was trying my hardest not to, I didn't jump on it. I was serious. I actually checked out the resources that this person gave me, and then we had a whole conversation about it. And, it got a little bit more intense as the conversation went on. But in the end, we realized, we reiterated that we're friends and we love each other. But it just made me realize, a lot of people that I have these conversations with, when I do have the conversations, even aside from the poll, usually when I have the conversation and it does get a little heated, I will throw out the question, what resources do you have? I would love to dig deeper to understand your side of things.
Way to de-escalate.
And I haven't really found that I get much feedback back on that side of things. It's more of they're just seeing what's on the news. They're just seeing what's what they've been told from other people. Third party, they're not doing their due diligence to look out. And I feel like with the age of the internet and intelligence of you can search for anything at any time, anywhere.
Yes.
And even with AI, building to the stages that it is. I find that people are not actually doing their due diligence to allow themselves time to actually dig into some of this stuff. It's more of just, the information is out there, so I'm just going to let other people tell me.
Yeah.
And it's just such an easy cop-out, and I really wish, and I do encourage everybody listening that if you are interested in a topic, or if you feel passionate about it, when somebody brings up a topic and you feel hurt by it, if it impacts you inside and you feel deeply about it, to a point where you want to lash out and say, no, you're wrong, take a break, take a breath, and do some research. Look into it yourself. Do the due diligence and try to understand where the other person's coming from first before you go and jump into a conversation. Because if you're not going into a conversation to learn, if you're going in emotionally, you're not going to learn anything. Yeah. In fact, you're going to lose friends. That's all I can say. Really, it's what's going to happen. So,
well said. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was going to say, if you can you imagine if all your conversations in life over anything difficult in life was only done on YouTube comments or on a comment platform of some sort, and like that included anything from family to everything you talked about with your grandparents. It'd be like we don't sit at the dinner table and do this. We get on YouTube and we comment on each other's thing. No, I'm just kidding. But that's kind of at that level. You're literally 2 feet away from each other.
I don't like when you're wrong. You're wrong.
You're right about the emotional thing. I've actually caught myself too, like on, whatever it is, like, I want to say something snarky to that. And then I have to ask, like, not that I'm some perfect, I usually fail. So let me just put this, sometimes I've caught myself and been like, is this bringing value? Is this going to make my life better? I don't know. Of course I don't know the person. And I'll actually delete. I have a good, like, paragraph of snarkiness that's actually well written. Or, great. Shakespeare loves it. Delete. Not worth it. And like, because then I'm gonna have to nurse that thing, go back and maybe see who. But yeah, like it's crazy, man. And I'm not saying you shouldn't comment on things. I'm just saying, like, for me, I've like gotten into those things where I'm like, where am I going? What was I really planning on doing today? But I love this. I love that there's a platform out there, and that we're coming out of the caves, so to speak, of the comment caves, to like actually have a dialogue and stuff, and like be able to. Even in the church too, it's hard. There isn't just, there's a lot of, as a church goer, I see just the going and not a lot of, like, even in like we belong to a community group, it's hard to get that to be a norm where this is just what we just live for, because it doesn't revolve around that. Like, that's the thing. I keep harping on that, but like it revolves around a sermon, and then we kind of do stuff to kind of like accommodate that and build that up. And then money flows there. Good. Okay, great. But we can grow so much in the other ways by being able to like address and sit around the table. And that's why I love your podcast. Back to that little plug. Grub and Grace, are we breaking bread together and like being able to have, because you can have a meaningful discussion even if it's hard, but like, can you eat with that person and like be friends? Like you said, you were friends with that other person after, like you're like, hey, we're still friends. Yeah. But like the fact that you have to do all that and like, anyway. Yeah.
Well, like you said, I don't think we should go into the impression that we have to maintain the friendship. I think it is okay to, if there is a very toxic relationship that's not healthy for one or both parties, or whoever else is involved, maybe more parties than two, but I think it is okay and healthy to let go of some relationships. But if it is a relationship that both parties are privy to wanting to keep, I think it is healthy to remind and make that a focal point going into the conversation, or if you forget to, making sure you come full circle back to that.
Yeah. That's a good reminder.
I do have a hard stop, so it is rapidly.
I just realized I saw the time there too. Yeah,
but if there's, I got a couple more minutes. So if there's anything else,
Well, my website is. I don't have. I guess I do have a website, but it has nothing to do with this. If you guys have any
pitch yourself. Yeah.
So I'd like to get on a good movie right now. Like a 6-month show would be nice, so I can make some money again. So if anyone knows any good producers, give me a call. And no, don't be throwing Harvey Weinstein at me again. I don't want him. Get him out of here.
Why don't you remind everybody what is it you do? Because you operate the cranes for cameras, right?
Yeah, so that's kind of my bread and butter. I got into this niche of like, I went to school for film, but I moved, and the job that I landed, which I found, God, I feel like it's a gift from God. Like here's this job. I didn't know what it was, what it entailed, but it ended up being camera operating on these big cranes that do telescopic movie shots, like real, basically just advanced movement for cameras that can get into places that, and just cool movement, like just camera movement. Stuff that's fast and slow, big, small, everything but drones. I haven't really done drones, but so that's movie, TV, music video market. And things have been slow this last year or so. And so we're hoping things come back this next year. That would be really great. But yeah, that's been it. And it's a fun and exciting landscape. Landscapers reunion of things. But yeah, that's basically what I do. We tell stories with cameras. How do we move a camera? What would move the story along? Should this actor come out of the car, the camera is above the car as it pulls in, and now the camera swoops down and gets right next to the passenger window as the door opens, and you see her hand shut the thing, like stuff like that. That can all be accomplished in a one-shot thing with a certain length camera, crane, and this and that. And so I've become an expert in that field, and I feel very hyper specialized in that. And I'm trying to find a way. Hey, do I need to leave this industry? My identity is not in film, Hollywood, or anything like that. And it used to be, but I realized, I'm just blessed to be able to do what I get to do and make money doing it when I get to do it, of course. And right now that's not the case, but we'll see.
Yeah, maybe we can get together more often and make a YouTube channel.
Yes.
YouTube videos.
You're not the first person that said that, by the way, in the last week. I keep getting that, hey, when are you going to do a comedy or something, or something more up your alley? I'm more, yeah, exactly.
Well, Zach,
thank you.
I probably should go ahead and call it here. Yeah, my alarm's just about to go off. But seriously, thanks for having me come over to your house.
Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah.
You're always welcome, and this is such a treat, man. Thanks for letting me do this topic and get into the weeds here a little bit.
For those who are listening, this is one snapshot of just the conversations we have. I feel like every time we talk on the phone, it's just always a good time. So, again, thank you so much.
I'm usually crying laughing whenever I talk with you. Like, there's something... Yeah, you get me. You get my tickle belly going. Always and forever.
I think we should end with the Pastor Sid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah. Oh, that's my.
Oh, I thought it was me. I thought that was the Pastor Sid instrumental lead-in. Ready?
Yeah.
Pastor Sid, you've never closed the lid. Pastor Sid. You okay? Yeah.
Pastor Sid. I don't know. All I can think about is his bathtub quote.
When you saw me in that bathtub, you thought I'd be great on a worship team.
Bring the dogs down to the stage.
Never let them go, never let them bite, let them praise, let them praise, let them praise.
Praise till 2 a.m.
I'll see you in the chapel. Getting your credits. I bring that special eggnog that you love so much.
I don't know how to land the plane at this point.
Well, all I can say is thank you, and honestly, really appreciate it.
That's it for today's episode of Grub and Grace. I hope you enjoyed our discussion with Zach Kidder about our journey to seek for truth, and also the importance of practicing good faith dialogue. I want to give a big thank you again for Zach Kidder for joining us on this episode. If you like the content that we produce, be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find podcasts, as well as following us on social media. And as always, until next time, stay curious, keep an open mind, and celebrate the traditions that bring us all together.